So in this video, I want to talk about the popular idea, mostly being pushed online, that Black women en masse are rejecting educated, high-value Black men. And this video was inspired by a viral clip from an Instagram speed dating show called The Pineapple Show, where a Black woman rejected a nuclear physicist because she said he was too boring and didn't have enough personality.
Yeah, so actually I'm a nuclear physicist for the Navy.
No.
So I do that in a few days.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about yourself.
Man, where do I start? I like martial arts a lot. I did a bit of pharmacy back when I was a little bit younger, about 2-3 years ago. I got certified at pharmacy around when I was 17. I didn't really do anything with it. I went to university for a while. I was getting like a business degree. So I have a bachelor's in business. And then I did pharmacy for a little while, for about 3 years, and then got bored. So I was like, let's go see what the military has to offer. Didn't do anything. I did my PICAT about a year ago. Got a 96 on that. It goes up to a 99, got a 96. They offered me nuclear physics, and I was like, why the fuck not? So I went there, and now I ship out in a few days.
Oh, okay, nice. Well, best of luck as you ship out pineapples.
Yeah. Why?
Because he literally didn't tell me any qualities about himself. He's just like, I made a 96 on this. I did this. And I feel like I did that at first too. But however, I need a man with some personality.
You felt that quick? You know you didn't have personality?
Yes, I'm really good at reading people.
Okay.
And so the clip made its rounds all over social media. Of course, the manosphere had a field day with it because to them, this one Black woman somehow proved that all or most Black women only want street dudes and thugs instead of educated, high-earning, well-to-do Black men. And just a side note, this man appears to be mixed race, and he also isn't the typical representation of an American Black male. So it's very interesting how so many Black men are identifying with him when any other time he would be soft, he would be a pretty boy who's corny and lame. And I just had to say that to point out how Black men will use the men they normally don't like just to slam Black women. But anyway, this is a very popular talking point in the manosphere. The idea that there aren't enough Black women for the hordes of highly educated, high-value Black men who are just so great, and they don't date Black women because Black women don't want them, and they are being forced and pushed into the arms of white women and other non-Black women. That is the constant narrative from the manosphere online. So after all of these men made videos and commentary about how this woman was quote-unquote for the streets, how she only wanted rappers and entertainers, she came back to defend herself and correct what was being said about her. And what I found interesting was that there was another guy on the show that she actually liked who wasn't street at all, and he went against a lot of what the men were saying about this woman. But of course that part of the video did not go viral.
Like, I don't know, I was just as nerdy as him. Like, I had a Star Wars shirt on, you know. I was a 3D artist and said all that stuff that I did as a living. Like, I'm pretty like whatever into that space, but it's all about like how you talk to people and stuff. I don't think it's anything wrong with someone saying like they don't like something or they don't vibe with something. Like, we're similar people, like in interest, me and the dude, but we both have different characteristics. And like, she picked up on what she liked or whatever, and said pineapple to one and continued the conversation with the other. And people are dragging her for one clip when they didn't watch the whole show.
And so I do want to talk about where I think this young lady and a lot of Black women go wrong in general when it comes to vetting men, because some of the criticism I heard about her and Black women is correct. But first, I have to call out the misinformation being spread by the manosphere. And I want to cover some things that I haven't heard anyone say about this supposed one-sided rejection. And I want to lay this out specifically for my young Black woman listeners, because I want you guys to be equipped with talking points and responses when you're being backed into a corner with these accusations. Because what bothers me is how when things like this happen, the conversation always turns into a complaint about all black women, when in reality, this has more to do with the minority of black women or mixed with black women that many high value black men prefer, but these women don't want them. And they're taking out that rejection on black women who they aren't even interested in. And I can be 100% honest and say that I do see black women gravitating toward a specific type of black man, or if he's not black, a man who's been influenced by black culture. But what's not being discussed enough is how they also reject certain black women. Because remember, Kevin Samuels and other self-proclaimed high-value black men, or non-street dudes or non-thugs, they're already on record stating that black women are the least attractive compared to other races of women.
You can, they're and they're saying, beauty is subjective. That's another fallacy. Beauty is not subjective. That's why we have the golden ratio, the Fibonacci equation. You can look at facial symmetry and see that beautiful people, you can map their facial structure, and it goes to a mathematical calculation.
Oh yeah.
Beauty is universal. And the thing is, we're talking about black women. They are on the opposite end of the spectrum on all ranks.
And just like I told y'all in the video I did about Kevin Samuels around the time that he passed, what he said in that clip is the baseline. Black men and men in general prioritize a woman's looks during mate selection. So if they come in the gate saying that we are the least attractive, it's pretty much downhill from there. If they're saying they prefer quote unquote exotic women and non-black women and light-skinned women because they look better, it's a chance, a very high chance, if they are dark-skinned or an unambiguous black woman, they weren't going to choose them anyway. Which is why I will continue to encourage black women to expand your options to include non-black men who of course like black women, so that you can have more to choose from. Because what none of these men are saying is that their real issue is that the light-skinned, big booty Instagram model or the quote-unquote exotic woman does not want a nuclear physicist or an everyday working black man. And this woman who rejected the nuclear physicist, she wasn't, exotic by their definition, but she is a lighter skin preference. And the men who are complaining, the men who are the loudest, they don't usually want their female counterparts. The women they went to school with, the women who have similar interests, they want the women who they are not compatible with, who they largely are not compatible with. So what these men aren't saying is that they are going for women who are quote unquote out of their league. It's so interesting how they can tell women, and black women especially, how they want men that they don't have access to or they're not pretty enough for because they're average at best or whatever, but they can't acknowledge when women are out of their league. And I'm not saying this applies to the woman and the nuclear physicist, because honestly, he was pretty hot to me. But I'm using that example to talk about what I see happening in general with these men who are online complaining. Because they're using this one guy to paint the narrative that black women en masse are just rejecting men like this, when there were literally black women asking the host of this show, like, where is he at? I want him. Contact him. I want to get on the show with him. This guy is likely not hurting for black female attention. And most of the guys who are being rejected, who are identifying with this guy, they aren't scientists. They aren't even college educated. They got rejected by some light-skinned girl in school, and they saw this woman and she triggered some childhood memory of that. Or maybe they tried to talk to some Instagram model who only wanted a man with money that they don't have, and they're making it seem like this situation is the same as theirs. No, it's not. It's not the same. And there's also this lie that they've been pushing, saying that most educated black women are dating and marrying street dudes, and that's just not true either. Statistically, educated black women and black men marry before anyone in the community. They marry the most out of all black people, usually because they have more money. And when they do marry, they marry each other. And studies also show that light-skinned women get married first, which further proves my point about these men's preferences. We all know that since the men usually propose, they are in control of which women get married. You aren't choosing light-skinned women to marry first because dark-skinned women are rejecting you. You're choosing them because that is who you want. Now, obviously, following light-skinned women, statistically, dark and brown-skinned women would be the next choice. Then I think it's around 20% of black men who marry non-black women. And bear in mind that these percentages are of the black men who actually get married. over half of black men have never been married. We're not talking about the entire black male population. We're talking about under half of black men, and it could be more because most of these statistics are not up to date. And we know that within that percent of married black men who marry black women, a lot of those quote unquote black women are actually mixed. And so we're supposed to believe that the primary reason that married black men who didn't marry black women, or specifically dark-skinned black women, we're supposed to believe is because they all got rejected by black women. Really? After y'all already told us that you don't prefer dark-skinned women and you statistically marry light-skinned women first? It's not adding up, fellas. It's not adding up. Black men marry out primarily because they want to, not because black women are pushing them over the fence. It's bullshit, and it's ridiculous that so many black women are falling for it. Because I saw a black woman actually telling this woman who rejected the nuclear physicist that she's the reason why this guy was going to end up with a white woman. As if there were no other black women in the world that would be interested in him. As if black women weren't trying to get to this man.
I'm surprised that he was even on there pitching to date a black woman, because usually guys like that, especially in the Woodlands, in that area in particular, they're mostly dominated by white women and they go after white women. So after this, I hope that he's not discouraged from dating black women, because I hope there are some that are out there. I believe in black love, so hopefully he still pursue other black women. But a guy like that, like, what, I'm not saying this is your fault, but this may discourage him from dating black women because he was embarrassed on a public platform like that. You literally passed up a scientist. And I'm telling you, within a few years, that a white woman's going to snatch him up quick.
This whole interracial dating fear-mongering that the manosphere is doing, this scare tactic they use on black women has been happening for a while, but it became really popular with the rise of Kevin Samuels. And now I see more and more black women are feeding into it. Black women really think that we can stop black men from dating out, when the truth is that these men were already dead set on dating out anyway. There's nothing we can do to stop that. Again, if the baseline with these men who are doing the complaining is black women are less attractive than other groups of women, ain't nothing you can do to change that. Your attitude, your weight, nothing. So it will behoove you to stop begging and chastising other black women who reject them. It's not going to make them choose you any more than they're doing now. And another argument they make is, oh, well, most black women are fat. High earning black men don't want fat women. And that's why black men date out. That's why black men are going over the fence. Well, let's break down some of the data. According to the IFS study that the manosphere loves to use, 2.5 million black men are in the upper class. Now, we don't know much about these 2.5 million black men. We don't know how many of them have good character. We don't know how many of them are straight and even date women. We don't know their BMI, whether they're average weight, overweight, or obese. We don't know much about them, but I'm just going to go with that number for the purposes of this conversation. Based on this, there are 2.5 million high-earning black men. And according to blackdemographics.com, there are 22 million black women and girls in the United States. And when you break that down by age, about 15% of those are black girls under 20 years old. So about 18.7 million are black women aged 20 and over. And according to the CDC, 80% of black women aged 20 and over are overweight and obese. That leaves 20% of black women who are at an average weight or below, which comes out to about 3.7 million black women. That means that those 2.5 million black men in the upper class have around 3.7 million black women who are not overweight or obese to choose from. And feel free to crunch the numbers yourself and correct me if I'm wrong, but based on my calculations, average weight black women outnumber high earning black men. And when you think about it, it makes sense. One, because high earning black men are in the minority, and two, because there are more black women than black men overall. We also know that the BMI chart is flawed. It's based on average white bodies. And we also know that black men are known to date women of all races that would be considered overweight depending on how they're built. There are plenty of women who would be considered overweight based on the BMI chart, but because they may have a big butt or big breasts or big legs, they will make the cut for many black men. Let's just be honest here. So I would venture to say that they actually have more than 3.7 million black women to choose from. Now, of course, none of what I'm saying is to deny the obesity crisis among black women. Y'all know I talk about that often on my channel, but that's not what this conversation is about. I am talking about black women who are not overweight. I'm talking about all of the black women that these so-called high-value black men say that there aren't enough of. Now, again, these are just numbers. We don't know much about these women, their character, sexual orientation, etc. Just like we don't know much about the 2.5 million black men. We also don't know how many men and women in these groups live around each other. There are just so many factors to consider. But the point is, if we're going by the numbers alone, these high-earning black men have enough average weight black women to choose from if that's what they want. And obviously, because of the internet, people are more accessible than ever right now. Now, the next argument from them will be, well, what about all of the single mothers? And let's look at that. 70% of black women ages 20 to 24 are childless. 41% of black women ages 25 to 29 are childless. And something we would need to look at is how many of those 2.5 million high-value black men are in those age groups. We know that there aren't many high-value black men who are ages 20 to 29. But the high-value black men who are that young are going to have plenty of young, childless, in shape black women to choose from their age group. And something else we don't know is how many of these 2.5 million high earning black men have kids themselves, because over half of black men ages 30 to 39 have children, and they also don't generally start making good money until they're in their 40s and 50s, when most of them already have children. And look, high value black men who are in their 40s and 50s who find themselves single around that time, can they demand a woman with no children? Yeah, they can demand whatever they want when they're that old. But the truth is that young, childless women, black, white, or otherwise, they generally aren't going to be interested in 40 and 50-year-old men, nor men with children, unless they're strictly after their resources. Which, if you've been listening to me for a while, you know that I'm pro-hypergamy, so more power to those women. You know I'm all about younger women dating older, as long as he's not a predatory, creepy old man. But the problem is, black men consider that to be gold digging. So realistically, if these 40 and 50-year-old high-value single black men want much younger women, they're gonna have to accept that those younger women are likely dating them because they have money. And hey, I call that an exchange. You get her youth and beauty, she gets your resources. Deal. But I'm just speaking on the reality that most women and people in general want to date within their peer group, or no more than 5 or 10 years older. And my overall point here is that statistically, high value black men have plenty of black women to choose from when they're young, upperly mobile, or high value, or when they're older and they have children. Because at that point, if you have children and you meet a black woman who has children, so what? Y'all both have children. My mother got with my stepfather, they both had children. Childless people are generally going to want to be with other childless people. It's not an all black woman problem because you just got on your feet at 40 or 50 years old and you can't meet a young childless black woman that wants to date you. That's not an all black woman problem. That's a you problem. And of course, there are other factors to consider when dating someone, such as compatibility between those two people, the quality of the two people, that also matters. But it doesn't just matter with women, and black women in this case. It matters with high value men and high value black men. We don't know how many high quality black men are in that 2.5 million. Again, we already know that most of y'all are colorist. Many of you are arrogant. Many of you don't even want marriage. And then your self-proclaimed high value spokespersons online, they represent you guys very poorly. So you're just not going to be able to sell me or any other smart black women on the idea that you're not dating or marrying black women because they are rejecting you. No. And something else with the high value conversation, and I've talked about this before, but a lot of this is about class. There are black people, both men and women, who didn't quite fit the mold of popular black culture and have been rejected by other black people. And that's how they end up dating white or other non-black people. Some of them were also raised around non-black people, so they choose based on who's in their environment. But the stats still say that most upper class black people are getting with each other. Not to mention, we're also accused of wanting men who are in the top 10% of earners in the United States, but we're also rejecting them. It's not adding up. Again, I will acknowledge that I've heard black women say they want a certain type of high earning man, like a hustler or a man who doesn't work a 9 to 5. But the women who usually say that don't work 9 to 5s themselves. The women who are saying they don't want 9 to 5 men or blue collar men are usually influencer black women like B. Simone. And remember, when B. Simone said she didn't want a man who worked 9 to 5, look at how many black women in particular jumped down her throat for that. Most black women are actively getting with working black men. So this idea that most black women don't want working men when they defend you all the time, it's just not true. And that is something I noticed. While these educated black men, these 9 to 5 working black men, blue collar black men, while they're saying all of these black women are rejecting them because black women think they're corny or lame or they don't have enough money, they sure do get a lot of defense from black women when another black woman says they don't want that. Even the woman who rejected the nuclear physicist, she said herself that she was getting chastised mostly by other black women for passing this guy up. You will always find women who are going to make videos, they're going to go on panels after situations like this and coach black women or chastise other black women on what she did wrong when it came to a black man or just men in general. There are very few black men that coach other black men on how to be better for black women, but there are tons of black women who coach black women on how to get right for black men. So really what black men are responding to, the black men online, they're responding to a minority of women. It is a loud minority, but it's a minority nonetheless. You got a lot of black women going to bat for you, but you're still upset because you feel entitled to the women who are out of your league. And that is not the problem of everyday black women. It's just not. And black women, it's also not your job to defend these men because they're not even checking for you, yet you're going hard in the paint for them. And to me, that stems from this scarcity mindset within black women that they project onto each other. It's the mindset that says, oh, well, there's already not enough good black men out here. There's already not enough good high value black men to go around. And you had one in your reach, sister, and you let him go. How dare you? That's what this is about. So that kind of response proves that there are black women who are interested in this man and men like him. It's just not the one that he wanted this time. I do think that this narrative being spread about them not having any options is being grossly exaggerated. In every other community, by and large, the educated men, the quote unquote lames and the corny dudes, they date and marry women within their league. For the most part, they are not complaining about their fantasy women choosing men who are in their league. Unless, of course, you consider MGTOW, which are the broke white incels complaining online, but they are in the minority. And let's be honest here, there are quote unquote non-select guys in every community. It's not just black women who want a particular type. It's not just black women who rejected these men either. No, you just finally got lucky with the woman you wanted and she happened to be white. Now, if we want to talk about how black women overwhelmingly choose poorly in the black community and how they're having babies by the worst of men, then we need to be honest about all of the reasons that is. If low earning, underachieving men make up most of the community, then that's who black women who are around those men are going to choose. That is who they're going to have babies with. It's not rocket science. If a certain archetype of black men is constantly being promoted to black women and we're always being conditioned and shamed by the community into holding a brother down and being a ride or die, then how do you expect black women to navigate that? How do you expect them to choose? And again, if you are rejecting those women yourselves, how can they choose you? If there's a minority of you and black women already outnumber black men, how is every black woman going to choose one of you? There's not enough of you to go around. And so they need to stop pretending that they're the majority of the black male population because they're not. Also, if smart, educated, high-earning black men want to be respected in the black community at large and not on an individual basis or by individual black women, one, you got to get your numbers up. And two, you have to do what other high-earning educated men do for their communities. You have to actually build. You have to provide for your community. You have to create your own infrastructure and black-owned media to promote yourselves. Like I said back in the day on my series on educated black men, you fail to assert yourselves in this community. It's up to you to promote yourselves and make yourselves the standard in the community, like other races of men have done in theirs. You can't expect the same support and recognition non-black men get when you haven't done for yourselves and your community like they have. And I can hear it now. What about white supremacy? What about racism? They wasn't allowed to do this. They wasn't allowed to do that. Like I've always said, I'm not giving that excuse to black men when it's not given to me. Black women can't use white supremacy and racism as a crutch. When black men talk about how fucked up black women are, and they scream it to the world, they ain't saying it's because of white supremacy, it's because of racism. That's not what they're doing. So I nor any other black women owe that excuse to black men. A lot of these men think that because they manage to get a degree and a good job and, I don't know, drive a nice car, they think they are above reproach. They think that they should be treated like gods. And that's something I've been seeing a lot since this whole high value conversation. Kevin Samuels blew up. High earning black men think that being high earning overrides bad character. Or not even just being high earning, because a lot of these men talking aren't even high earning. They just think that not being a thug or not being a street dude should override all of their other horrible qualities. Black women are allowed to want a high value man who also has a good personality or who also has good character. Or if not high value, we're allowed to want just a man in general, whether he be black or otherwise, that's a good person if we are good people. We don't have to ignore all of the other messed up stuff about you just because you've achieved the bare minimum. We don't have to tolerate abuse in any form from black men or any man just because he's high value or because he has a good job and he's not a felon. In a day and age where women are able to make their own money and we no longer have to completely rely on men, yes, you do have to be more than high value, just like a woman has to be more than pretty. And I think that because there aren't a lot of high value black men, when there is one, the manosphere and even other black women, they tend to treat them as if he has no flaws and can do no wrong. Ever since the high value conversation became popular, the quote unquote choose better mantra has become really forceful and extreme. And what's happening is a lot of these older black women who made a lot of poor choices when they were young, maybe had kids by the wrong man, maybe they passed up so many good men, when they were younger for the bad boy. They are being very loud along with the manosphere, and they're coming from a place of no experience with established high earning men and established black men especially. So they're seeing them through a romanticized lens and idealizing what it would be like with them. And because they represent the man who got away for them or a time where they quote unquote fumbled the bag, they're projecting their dating experiences onto the black woman who rejected the nuclear physicist and just black women in general. They're completely overlooking that high value men, black, white, or otherwise, come with their own shit just like any other man. And see, black men, they use black women's lack of experience in this area to their advantage. They will tell you some shit about high value men that makes absolutely no sense. And you believe it because you don't know. They start giving you all of this ridiculous advice and half truthful information about high value men so you can tolerate all this bullshit. And not just from high value men, but just regular everyday men. Because let's be honest, Kevin Samuels' platform was not for high value men. It was for the everyday black man. And so he and others are allowed to get away with this just because black women don't have experience. But for women who already have experience in dating high earning men, black, white, and other, we can give you a more nuanced and less desperate perspective. And I want to close out with some advice for black women regarding choosing and vetting high value men. And I understand that some of what I say may overlap with what the manosphere says, but it's important for you guys to understand that the intentions are different, because my advice is to benefit you first and foremost, not men. It's to benefit black women first. Their advice is catered to primarily benefit men, and black men in particular. And I think we should be able to help young black women navigate the dating world and do what's in their best interest without being accused of being the manosphere or quote unquote male identified. So with that said, I want to remind black women that high value men, they lead with their accomplishments, like this nuclear physicist guy, okay? And if you're looking to be hypergamous, you should see this as a good thing. We as hypergamous women, we value men primarily based on what they produce, what they provide. And for high value men, that is going to be a huge part of their identity. And this is not to say that a man's career should be all he identifies with. And that goes for women as well. It can be very damaging for anyone to base all of their worth on money and accomplishments. However, high earning men that put a lot of effort into being high earning, who want to provide for a woman and a family, they will inevitably lead with their accomplishments. So you're going to have to be okay with that if that is the kind of man that you want. Men who don't care about money are generally the ones you don't want. They're broke, they're cheap, they're stingy, they want 50-50. So what I'm saying here is either extreme is bad and a middle ground is necessary. As long as he's not abusive or controlling, it shouldn't be a problem. problem. And as I've said several times before, abusive men, controlling men, they come in all tax brackets. It's not just a high value or a low value thing. Black women especially should never give high value men the impression that leading with being high value is wrong. We already have the reputation of being more willing than any group of women to date down financially. We already have the reputation that we willingly accept struggle love. So shooting down high earning men for leading with their money and their accolades, it only reinforces that stereotype. And even if you have your own money, you should still want a man like that. Unless, of course, you're willing to always foot the bill. Most of the time or all of the time. And look, some women don't mind. All I'm saying is that you need to understand how high value men operate and use that to your advantage. And being quote unquote boring, it doesn't have to be a bad thing, ladies. You can bring the excitement to the relationship. And if he's so uptight that he can't relax and can't have fun, then you can decide if that's a deal breaker and leave him alone. But don't just assume and dismiss him after one date. And something else young Black women need to understand is the importance of networking and keeping communication with educated, high-earning, well-connected people. Now, obviously, this is easy for many educated women and women with good careers, but even some of you still don't take advantage of networking opportunities. And I know that some of you are also still young and you may be just now encountering these kind of people in situations. Take their information, take their business card if they have one, and keep in touch. You just never know when someone's knowledge and expertise can benefit you or come in handy for you or somebody you know. When you network, you're building a team that will create opportunities for you and support you and vice versa. And you could potentially be put in an environment by one of those people where you have very close access to the men you want to date. You never know what can come of it. So be open to networking. And the last piece of advice I want to give Black women is please stop going on these silly shows and nigga podcasts telling them all of your business and giving your opinions. If you've noticed, in the long run, they never truly benefit Black women. They usually only favor the men. And the next thing you know, your clip has gone viral and they're doing a million response videos using you as the example of why quote unquote Black women ain't shit. So I say stop allowing yourselves to be used as fodder for these misogynistic men. They win by controlling the narrative. And as a Black woman, you have everything to lose. You are always going to be made to be the butt of the joke. They're going to nitpick every little thing that you say. They're going to try to embarrass you, humiliate you. So just keep that in mind the next time you think of calling or participating in one of these shows or podcasts. So that is all I have for this topic for now. Let me know if you agree that Black women en masse are rejecting high value Black men. Also, let me know what you think about this video and I'll catch up with you in the next one.